Hello, it's Rhonda Thomas, and we are going to finish up Managerial Accounting's Chapter 4 intro problems or intro exercises. So let me share my screen and I'll try to be brief. Okay, so we left off in the previous video on number 3. Okay, so this is where I'm at. All right, and I think we had maybe gotten through this. So let's go through this and I'll show you my spreadsheet that explains my calculations. Okay, so this is activity-based costing. So what they do is, this is the Cypress Marine Company, and we have a yearly overhead amount of $1,317,050. Okay, we put that in right here in the spreadsheet. And now they've got 4 activities that they spread out they allocate, right? This gets allocated over these 4 activities. And here is how much of the overhead each activity gets. And that's from up here. And then they make speedboat and a bass boat. All right, so when we know how much each activity's overhead is, and I double checked that they added up okay, and they did. So 43,000 direct labor hours represents fabrication. 45,000 direct labor hours represents assembly. Then a setup, which does not rely on direct labor hours, they actually rely on the setup itself. And then that shows you setups for the speedboat and the bass boat. And then finally, inspections, 134 versus 941. So we're going to get these activity rates here. So what this is right here, right? So what drives the cost of the overhead for fabrication is the direct labor hour, and so does assembly. And if you take the total cost divided by the total amount of direct labor hours under fabrication, you get $15 an hour. Same with assembly. If you have 230,000 in overhead, 45,000 direct labor hours, you get a rate of $6 per direct labor hour. Now with setups, okay, setups, there's how many there are, right? So here's the total amount for setups, and the 645 setups in total, and that makes each setup cost $340 in overhead. And then finally, inspections. Inspections, there were 1,075 of them. And when you divide that number into that amount of overhead, you get $170 $170 per inspection. So once again, this is overhead being allocated to these various activities because those activities help drive the cost of the overhead, okay? And so then we have to make a table for the speedboat and a table for the bass boat. We need to list all 4 of the activities and the amount of each. So speedboat has 10,750 direct labor hours. Assembly has 33,750. So you got to put all of these belong to the speedboat, right? And I've got them all here. 10,750 in direct labor hours, 33,750 in assembly. There are 77 setups and 134 inspections. Okay, and then we just simply use these rates against all these activities, and then here comes the total amount of overhead for the speedboat Okay, and then you add all four of these up to get a total. And then they said that each product is budgeted for 6,500 units. So then you divide this total here by the number of units. Okay, so this equals the total cost that we figured out with these activities and these rates. And then you divide that total by the number you are producing. I got 63.49, but they want it rounded to the nearest dollar. So $63 is the answer for the speedboat. So for every speedboat that's made, there's $63 of overhead that is charged to that unit. Let's look at the bass boat now. Okay, bass boat, same thing. Put the four activities there. Put their totals of each of those activities, and then the rates, and then do the math across. And when you're done, you have a total of 904,340. We divide by the same number, 6,500, and then this becomes 139.13. And if you round down, there's your answer. Okay, so I appreciate you guys letting me put this in a better table before I show it to you. Okay, so all right, let's move on. We've got two more. Now we're going to work a little bit with selling and administrative expenses. Okay, so this is a company that makes swing sets, and they have determined that there are two activities that drive overhead for selling and admin. Okay, now selling and admin can have overhead too. It's just not plant overhead. It's their office overhead or their store overhead or whatever. So they're different costs. Most departments or different functions of a business have different overheads. Okay, so that's not uncommon. All right, we've got the sales order process and the customer returns. We've got the rate plugged in for each of those. So the activity rate was $22 per sales order, and the customer return activity has an activity rate of $64 per return. So we put that in, and then they sold a total of 1,250 swing sets. Okay, and that's going to be down here, but there's 101 sales order processes and 75 of the customer returns. And then when you take it times the rate, you get $22,022, and you add 4,800 to it, then you get your first answer. Total manufacturing overhead. Okay, total manufacturing overhead based on these swing sets, right? So I'll go ahead and color that so you can see it. Okay, and then we're going to divide by the total amount of sets. So they gave us that way over here. So we're going to divide by 1,250. And when you do, you get 2146. So then that becomes the per unit sales order processing and customer return activity cost for swing sets. Okay, so I'm sorry, I misquoted. That's not overhead. Those are selling and admin expenses that they want to allocate over some activities that are going on for selling or for the swing sets. Okay, so I'm sorry I misquoted that. This is not overhead. This is allocating selling and admin expenses, right? Okay, so the overhead, but sometimes stores and offices can have some overhead. I just misread it. Okay, let's go to the last one then. The last one is about a hotel. And this is called activity-based costing for a service business. So there are 3 activities at this hotel that we need a cost of servicing customers, okay? So the first one is the guest check-in, the second one is the room cleaning, and the third one is meal service. We've got rates for each of these activities. I've got $8, $15, and $4. Okay, Nikita visited the hotel, so she checked in once and she stayed for 3 nights. So assuming her room was cleaned every day that she stayed there, and she had 4 meals in the hotel. So when you take the rate times the number of activities, then here is the amount you get, and then you add all of those up together, and you'll get total activity-based cost of the visit to the hotel. All right, so that's a much better. I'll try to do better about being ready instead of just winging it. So I'm going to say goodbye for now. So I'm going to stop the share, say goodbye for now, keep up the hard work, and I will have the next video ready just as soon as I can.